Welcome in to another episode of the My Two Bits Gators Football Podcast. I am your host, Ben, or one of your hosts, Ben, joined as always by your other host, Mr. Randy. Randy, we're a day late and a dollar short, much like Gators recruiting currently. How we feeling? How's it going? Sorry to
Oh,
everyone out there for being a day late, but I had to throw that out there. How's it going, bud?
that's all right, man. All's good in the world. Yeah, we might be a day late and a dollar short. You spent some time in an RV, traveling the country. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, yeah. Ran a little over on that trip, a little longer than expected, so we had to push till this evening. But ultimately, we are here. We are one day late, only one day late, and we are going to try to not be a dollar short. How about that? So for tonight's episode, as you were listening in our last one, we are doing Gator player spotlights for 2025. However, we have a little bonus for you that we've thrown in with just a quick basketball offseason update that we'll finish out with before we close things out. So to that end, our mission, our accuracy disclaimer, our vision, our agenda is how we will always start these things off. And our mission is to provide factual analysis of all things Florida Gator football and a little basketball tonight. Our accuracy disclaimer is that our information will be accurate to the best of our possible ability. We will cite our sources whenever we use them. And all statistical data comes from either ESPN or stats.ncaa.org, unless otherwise noted, which it will tonight. And recruiting data comes from on3.com. Our vision is to have unfiltered conversation around the product on the field, as well as recruiting and overall coaching decisions. Our analysis will be based on review of film, and while we will express opinion, that opinion should always be based in some form of fact. We will evaluate strategy and tactics and discuss our observation of player personnel decisions as well as on the field execution. So, to that end, our agenda tonight pretty straightforward. We're going to pick 10 players. We'll go through them in a minute, 5 from offense, 5 from defense. We will then give you our outlook as to previous season stats, wherever they might be from. And then we will talk about projections for this season, as well as a bit of player profile information where applicable. So after that, we will have, as we mentioned, a little off-season basketball update for you. A lot of good things popping in the off-season for the Gators. So we wanted to make a note of that tonight. And then from there, we're going to wrap things up short and sweet. Not a whole lot to it as far as the agenda goes, but we do have a fair amount of content in regards to going over these players. So with that, the players that we will be spotlighting tonight, we have, again, 5 from offense, 5 from defense. They will be Tony Livingston, maybe a little unexpected, but we're gonna pull him out regardless, and you'll see why. Michael Sturdivant, Jake Slaughter, who is the only repeat on this list from last year. We were trying kind of to not have repeats, but we felt like Jake just had to be on here again. Jaden Baugh, DJ Lagway, as you might expect. Puff Howard, Tyreek Sapp, Caleb Banks, Bryce Thornton, and Devin Moore. So that is the round out of the 5 from offense, 5 from defense. We will start things off on the offensive side of the ball. And I will actually get us started with Tony Livingston. So, little breakdown here. Tony was obviously a somewhat sought after recruit, but not super highly recruited coming out of high school. But he was also a bit overweight, was part of the problem. He came into the UF, I believe, over 290 is the number that I heard. I don't have a source to cite on that. That was actually from a broadcast that I was told that. I was not aware of that number, but he was a guy who really trimmed down. He lost over 30 pounds. I think he's currently listed at 260, but his overall mass index has changed dramatically in the weight that he's lost. Picked up some speed in that little Tyler Miles training regimen there. And the reason we wanted to call him out is because we see him as having a much, much, much more enhanced role in the offense next year. When we look at the departure of course, one Arliss Boardingham, as Randy likes to say, right? No more Arliss. He has moved on to Bowling Green University. Interesting transfer to go from Florida to Bowling Green. Not knocking Bowling Green, but just saying, little bit different caliber program there. So, regardless. 2024 stats for Tony. He played in 10 games and only had 11 receptions. But before you kind of think, wow, this guy didn't do anything, a lot of this happened in the last 2 games of the season. So he had 11 receptions for 109 yards, and he was the third string tight end last year. So that's important to keep in mind as well. He was not a starter, and typically the tight ends that were seeing the field last year were Arliss and one, of course, Hayden Hansen, who will see the field again this year. However, the real story, as I mentioned, came from the last 2 games where he had a TD reception against FSU and then 40 snaps against Tulane in the Gasparilla Bowl for 4 catches, 58 yards, and another TD. He also graded out in that game as the second highest offensive player per Pro Football Focus at 86.3. So we talk a lot about Pro Football numbers or Pro Football Focus numbers, and we haven't necessarily broken down what those numbers kind of mean. So 60 is kind of the middle of the road for them. 50, like average, if you will. Anything above 60, you start to become above average. Once you get to 70, you're doing pretty well. Once you get to 80, you're doing real well. This was an 86.3. So this is a very, very, very high grade. It's hard to get into the 90s. Keep that in mind when we talk about a player later that I have on my list, but it is hard to get into the 90s. So just for context there, they look at all kinds of different things, how you're performing basically on each play. They watch a ton of film. Those guys watch 1,000 times more film than Randy and I do. So it is ridiculous how much those guys are able to really dig in and kind of evaluate snap by snap performance in a game. But having said that, and for the record, we don't always agree with them, but having said that, it's a lot of review. It's quite the process, but an 86.3 is no joke. All that data that I just gave to you is actually from FloridaGators.com. So again, I mentioned some statistical data tonight, at least from me, will be coming from different sources, and that's where I pulled that from. So we wanted to spotlight Livingston because he looks to definitely be one of the starters, right? Him and Hansen should be your starting two tight ends. Hopefully we don't see two tight ends on the field at the same time quite as much, but that's neither here nor there right now. And because of the end of the year production that he had once Arliss basically left the lineup, because before he transferred, he was effectively not in the games at the end of the year. Those last two for sure. But he looks to have the fundamentals to handle the position in Napier's offense from both a blocking and pass catching scheme scenario, right? So Napier expects you to block as well as the tight end. This is why Arliss, I think, maybe transferred, because he didn't probably want to block this much. He wanted to be more of a receiver. And, he didn't get the targets last year, in fairness, that he got the year before. So I do understand it to an extent. But the point being is Livingston has shown his capability as both a receiver and a blocker, which is paramount in the way Billy runs his offense. It's really important, right? And he's also clearly developed some chemistry with Lagway, which is also very important, right? I'm not going to call for him to be a breakout player next season because of the way that Napier uses tight ends. However, he should see some substantial uptick across the board in targets, receptions, yards, and hopefully touchdowns. I think that would be the expectation for him, is that he would get a bit more involved. Again, we love Hayden to death on this show. We think he's a great player, great heart, great effort guy. But at the end of the day, I don't need Hayden catching 40 passes next year. It's just not something that we need to have happen. It's not probably beneficial to the offense. That's not a knock on him. He's just better as a blocker than he is as a receiver, right? Or certainly as a route runner anyway. Maybe some red zone targets or some things like that. But I think Livingston really has the opportunity to build that tight end receiving game into this offense more, the more snaps that he gets as we go out throughout the year. So those are my thoughts on Tony and where I think he is potentially headed next year. We did want to call him out because we think he's going to be kind of the next featured receiving tight end, if we can call this offense capable of having featured receiving tight ends. But as much as we can do, it'll probably be Livingston. Might be some Amir Jackson thrown in there as well, but we think Tony is probably going to get the lion's share of those snaps. So to that end, that wraps up player number one. Let's move on to Randy and look at number two.
B, I'm proud of you. You only had 2 references to tight ends in the offense. So good job.
Hey, I did all right. I did all right.
You did all right. The therapy is working. The player I'm going to spotlight right now, J. Michael Sturdivant, coming out of UCLA. One of the things that he really doesn't have to adjust to is the fact that UCLA was a Jumpman school, Florida's a Jumpman school, so there's that. Okay, 6'3", 205 pounds, a redshirt junior coming out of Marcus High School out of Flower Mount, Texas, close to Willis, Texas. Texas.
Interesting.
Reference. 2024 stats, 22 receptions, 315 yards, 14.3 yards per catch, 2 touchdowns. Seems rather pedestrian. Played in 11 of 12 games. He did start 8 of them.
Seems pedestrian, much like UCLA's offense. Go ahead.
Thank you for finishing that, the butt end of that joke. But in his career, Sturdivant's played, a similar role. I look at him as to what Badger did at Florida. And this is where it gets interesting. playing over 75% of his snaps at wideout, around 71% of Sturtevant's yards, and 50% of his targets came from passes of 10 plus yards downfield.
Yes, sir.
Okay. On passes with 10 plus yards downfield, he didn't receive a PFF season grade lower than 91. So that was very interesting. And averaging 92.5 on 115 targets.
I mean, that's ridiculous, honestly.
Right? Throughout his career. The number just lower than Badger's, because Badger, right, was at about 94.4 on 126 targets. Okay.
Interesting.
Now, another thing that's interesting about J. Michael is I think the similarities go further, but according to On3, okay, take a look at this comparison. In their 4 collegiate seasons, their career yards per receptions sit at 0.1 difference. 13.6 for Sturtevant, 13.5 for Badger. They both hold a career contested catch rate north of 45%. Okay. Nice. 46.2 and 47.1 respectively. Sturtevant's 39.5 receptions of 20 plus yards, receptions per target, 20 plus yards, sits just above Badger's 36.7% receptions per target of 20 plus yards. So, again, pedestrian had a lot to do with UCLA's offense, their quarterback situation. Can J. Michael come in and really, in essence, pick up where we left off when Badger came in and had a 1-year remarkable point of impact? Okay. The other thing that I thought was really interesting about him, and again, this is not just a fly-by-night award. Like, okay, we're going to give you the underwater basket weaving award. He was put on the Earl Campbell Tyler Rose Award watch list.
Yep.
And for those of you who don't know who won it last year, Aston Genty. Yeah, most outstanding player. So J. Michael, a lot of great things come out of him. He's got size, he's got length, he's got speed, he's got running ability. He's got Cardinal knowledge, and I think given UCLA's pedestrian offense and the struggles that they had, and look at what he's coming into and how he's going to be utilized, and if Russ and Billy see him as Badger-like as On3 sees him, he's going to fit in just fine into this offense, and we're going to be able to use that frame, that 6'3" frame, to do some amazing things as long as we can get the ball vertical, downfield, passing concepts. I know we talk about that a lot. He's going to be another anchor to help with this wide receiving core, which obviously we're bringing back Tricky Trey and the host of others that we have, of talent that we have to back up that core.
Absolutely. And don't quote me, but isn't he potentially a 4.3 40 guy as well?
So that's the other thing I tried to look up, and the numbers that I saw were 4.3, so 4.38, 4.4, 4.41, right in that range.
So more a 4.4 guy, but still a 4.4 guy, as you mentioned, at 6'3", 210, right? Yes. Is pretty good, right? That's pretty darn good when you combine that. That's pretty quick. So I think it'll be interesting to see what we have to work with there, as far as you mentioned in the vertical passing game. Really good points there.
Yep.
Cool. All right, moving on to the only repeat from last year's list. And in fairness, he's the only first-team All-American on this list, so I think he deserves to get a repeat, right? Mr. Slaughter in the middle there, which, by the way, what a great name for an offensive lineman, right? Jake Slaughter, like, yeah, let's get it. Really, really good stuff. So 2024 stats for Jake. There's a lot of stats that I could have pulled for Jake. I kept it pretty high level. I didn't want to dig in too deep. So the high level stuff, if we look at it, I mean, it's remarkable. It's clear to see why he was rated as the best returning interior lineman in college football, well, at least in Power 4. I don't know about outside the Power 4, but in the Power 4, he is the highest rated by PFF returning offensive lineman, interior offensive lineman in the country. Number 1. Not 2, not 3, number 1. Pretty impressive stuff. So just to give you some ideas on the stats from last season, and remember, this is from a 3-star recruit. This is a guy out of just north of Ocala. I don't remember the name of the town. I want to say it's like Spar. That's what it was. I was going to say Stark, but yeah, it's Spar. Yep. So he's out of Spar, Florida, just north of Ocala. And this is a kid that was not on a lot of people's radars. And man, they missed the boat on him. Talk about diamond in the rough find here for Billy. 800 snaps last season. He played 800 snaps just last season. In those 800 snaps, he allowed 1 sack and 8 hurries. He also had 8 of the 13 games last year where he did not allow a sack or a hurry at all for the entire game. So, to that end, you might expect this. He graded out at an 84.2 in pass protection from Pro Football Focus and an 80.2 in run blocking. So 80 plus in both categories, almost 85 in pass pro. Just outstanding. Outstanding. Again, highest rated returning interior offensive lineman in Power 4 football. Our center. Florida Gators. Our team. Pretty remarkable stuff. That, again, is cited from 247sports.com in this case, from that article. Of course, as I mentioned, he was also a first-team All-American. If he were to repeat as a first-team All-American, he would be one of only a handful of Gators to do that. I don't know, have that list in front of me, but it's a very small number that have had multiple first-team All-American selections. Pretty impressive stuff. So he comes back to anchor the established offensive line that we have, as we have talked about, right? All this returning experience, all these guys played together. And I think what's really important here is that Jake has seemingly been a lot of the glue, at least from what we can see from the outside, to this offensive line. He's one of the, veteran leaders now, especially on this team, and he's really helped that line gel and come together and play well, especially as last season progressed. Because obviously they did not start the year playing that well as a unit, not Jake, but others. And they really progressed as the season went along. Based on his performances in the past 2 years, we have no reason to not expect him to have another great season. Not a good season, but a great season. I mean, that's really the expectation for him, and I think it's reasonable. I don't think last year was a fluke when you look back at 23 when he was coming in to help out, either start or relieve a mostly injured Kingsley Eguakwan. He was very, very effective in that regard. He came in, he played well in those games, not as well as he played last season, but still played well, did his job well, did his role well, doesn't make mistakes, doesn't fumble snaps, right? He really does a really, really good job with setting the tone for that offensive line. And if he continues to play like he played last season again this year, I would be shocked if he's not a first-round NFL draft pick, quite frankly. And again, I don't suspect that he won't. So very, very high expectations for Jake. Honestly, probably the player on this list, if I'm going to be real about it, that I have the highest expectations for, that I also expect to be met. So I'm not saying his ceiling is necessarily as high as a couple other guys on this list, one in soon to come here. However, my expectations are that he will meet that ceiling and hit it and maybe even exceed it for next season. And I'd be honestly shocked if he didn't. And that's what makes Jake so cool, is he's so dependable, right? He's so reliable in what he's shown in his performance throughout these 2 years. So very excited to see what he do. I know O-line's not sexy. I know I'm talking about tight ends and O-linemen, and hey, this is offense. It's supposed to be sexy. Well, we'll get to that. Brandy threw a little in there. We got some more for you. But I got to tell you, that his play is going to be as important as anybody on that offensive side of the football. And I think, again, I expect it to be excellent. So moving on, let's talk some run the ball, shall we?
Exactly. Yeah, good points, B. I like it. Jaden Baugh, 6'1", 231 pounds, out of Decatur, Georgia. A true sophomore, 4-star. What an absolute get a year ago.
Yes, indeed. And if we remember, a signing day flip from Arkansas.
Flipperooski from Suey to Chomp. and it couldn't have worked out better for us. I'll tell you what. 2024 stats are as follows: 133 carries, 673 yards, 5.1 yards per carry, 7 touchdowns, splitting time in the backfield, but more importantly than anything else, 0 fumbles.
Wow,
Took
0?
care,
That's remarkable. I didn't know that.
took care of the foosball. That is correct, sir. I'm
Very
gonna
good.
highlight a couple things. Career game against Kentucky, we remember it well. 22 carries,
Yes,
106
indeed.
yards, 5 touchdowns, tied a record set by Tebow and Burton, 2 Gator greats, as we know. In that game alone, graded out 84-4 for Pro Football Focus overall.
Yes,
Ben,
indeed.
to your point, again, 60s, okay, 70s, okay, you're doing good. 80s, you're doing really good, and you're 5 points, 4 point change points under 90. Hell of a game. And of course, he had the 55-yard run to seal the game against LSU late in that fourth quarter.
Yes, he did.
So he had some signature plays this past year, and definitely looking forward to him making some more this fall. Couple things on Jaden. Gets up to speed extremely quick. Can transition laterally with the same speed and still have a great balance of power to lower the pads. He also has the elusiveness to give you a spin or a juke or a twist and a shimmy, and goodbye.
Yeah,
And
especially on the shimmy. That guy's shakes are unbelievable.
especially on the shimmy. Here's a quote from Jaden when asked by a reporter at a Gators press conference last year about his elusiveness, as they say. And he was quoted as saying, "Just been stuff I've been working on since I was little. Little. Boss said on a skill set. My pops instilled it in me early. It's just secondhand nature right now." Huh? Okay. Right. Um, Baugh also way ahead of the learning curve when it comes to pass protection. Again, the size, the physicality, his ability to identify blitzers, get in the proper position, helps the offense in such a big way. As Ben mentioned earlier, blocking is a big part of the offense to set up certain schemes and looks, and Baugh does it. Baugh was actually graded out as Florida's best running back in pass blocking all of last year. Not sure if you knew that, B.
Wow. I did not. I would have actually thought it was Jacoby.
You and I both, but again, according to Pro Football Focus, he graded out tops, and so that's the thing. Great kid, great head on his shoulders, great abilities, physically gifted, football IQ is up there, and we expect him. I expect him to set the tone for the running back room because again, we you figure out the wide receiver position, the running back room, we have like a first world problem, right?
Yes, we
But
do.
he's going to set the tone for the running back room this fall with physicality, speed, quickness, because there's a difference between speed and quickness. But in addition to that, he's also going to help those other running backs because we know Jacoby's got still more in the tank, but he's also going to help Trayon coming back from injury and the younger guys, the Daniels, Gasper. He's going to help those guys raise their level of play as well and raise that entire room around him. So big things out of Jaden this fall.
Love it. Love the excitement around him. I think again, as you mentioned, both the wide receiver room and the running back room. You know, we could have frankly picked basically any guy in there to spotlight.
Right.
We picked Jaden and Jermichael because we're the ones we're very confident are going to be starters alongside obviously Trey Wilson, who we spotlighted last year, which is why we didn't repeat him this year. So I think really when we look at it, there were just like you said, first world problems, a great way to describe it. I mean, that really breaks it down well when we look at it, right? So really good stuff there, and excited to see what that backfield produces this year.
Yes.
You know, along with the counterpunch of Jaden, we of course have Jacoby, who has more in the tank, as we saw in the spring game, right? That's a quote, by the way, from him saying he had more in the tank. So there you go. All right. So last but not least on the offensive list, we have a player that you may be aware that is on Florida's roster. You might have heard the name. I'm not sure. There are some people out there who may not be aware of who DJ Lagway is, but I think most people have probably heard of him by now. Obviously being as facetious as possible there. DJ, Should play the theme music right now, but I don't have it queued up. So we'll just talk stats instead. 2024 stats. Not anything that blows off the paper until you realize that he did this in basically like 7.5 games in total playtime, right? If he was the starter and playing throughout. 59.9% completion, 1,900 yards. Again, he only started 7 games. He played in more than that, but did not have a ton of production in some of those other ones. 1,915 yards. We've had quarterbacks that have played a full season that have only had, 24, 25, 2,600. He did it in half a season. It's pretty remarkable stuff. It's pretty remarkable stuff, just over half a season, but still, nonetheless. Average of 10.0 yards per attempt. So if we look back at some of the better quarterbacks historically that we've seen in any conference, they usually have a number floating somewhere between the high 8s and like the low 11s. So DJ, again, already at the high end of that range at 10.0 per attempt, shows his ability, shows his capability of throwing the long ball. He had 12 TDs and 9 INTs. The INT number, a little high for the amount of games he played. Certainly, we would not want that to increase exponentially next season. But I think this is where maybe some of this time we will see, but maybe some of this time that he had in the offseason where he wasn't throwing, to be able to study tape, study film, can really, really pay dividends in terms of his ability to read coverage out there. Because we saw he has the capability to do it, but we also saw that he has the capability to get fooled, right? That happened, thus the 9 INTs. So we need to see that improve next season. Of course, maybe the most impressive thing about DJ last year was 6-1 as a starter, and of course 6-0 in games he finished. So for those that don't know, he started the Georgia game, did not finish it, and that was the only game we lost where he started. I'll repeat that. That was the only game we lost where DJ Lagway started. And again, he didn't finish. He didn't even make it halfway through the second quarter. So, kind of relevant, right? When we look at his pedigree as a winner. He also finished, so for a great deal of the year, he was the best passer in terms of deep ball passer rating per Pro Football Focus. He finished as the second best by the time the year was already done. But overall, phenomenal deep passer rating. The ability of him to throw the ball accurately vertically is magic, as I like to say, right? It is absolutely amazing to watch that kid throw a deep ball. I've never seen somebody hit so many deep balls with such precision accuracy. It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible to watch. And classifying a deep ball as anything over 20 yards is the idea. They're 20 yards in the air, right? So biggest things to look at for DJ. Of course, he was, we didn't talk about pedigree with him. Obviously, 5-star recruit, top 10 recruit in the 2024 class, and lived up to that billing and then some. But the biggest things we want to look at with him going into this season are, does he continue to develop as a passer and a coverage reader, right? Because those are two different things, right? Passer, there were some throws that he was not necessarily as good on when you looked at some of the mid-range intermediate stuff. That was not as strong, though it did improve as the year went on. But ultimately, it was not his strong suit, clearly compared to the vertical deep passing game, right? I think, do we see that continue to improve? Do we see his decision-making get a little quicker as he becomes more comfortable with the offense? And does his reads of coverage, especially drop 8 coverage, right? Whether it's a zone, whether it's a man with a spy, drop 8 coverage, rush 3, drop 8 was a real problem for him last season. It caused a lot of his interceptions. I don't have the number offhand, but I know of at least 4 off the top of my head of his 9 picks that came in a drop 8 formation, including 2 against Tulane. So, when you look at this, that is really something that he struggled with last year. Does he learn this offseason and improve from that? My expectation would be that he would. However, that is something that we do need to talk about. And of course, how much, if any, his offseason shoulder concern, I'm not even going to call it an injury, I'm going to call it a concern, affects him in 2025. Do we have any lingering effects from that? We just got an update from Billy that came out, I believe, today or yesterday, that he is now throwing 3 times a week. And really starting to progress, and he is on track to be ready to be full go by fall camp. That is the current outlook for him, which is obviously phenomenal news, right? So that's definitely what we wanted to hear. The one other thing I want to mention about the situation with DJ for next season is he is going to have to deal with a ton of hype, which already exists, and frankly, a ton of expectations. But I can confidently say that I genuinely feel as good about DJ handling this as I could any college athlete on the planet. I don't know of anybody that I could sit out there and say, hey, if I loaded this guy up with every expectation in the world, all the pressure, all the hype, all the noise, everything around him that he's already getting, and the confidence that I would have that that would not phase him or mess him up. There's literally nobody on my list higher than DJ in college football today, anyway. He is grounded, he is focused, and he is clearly highly motivated by the task at hand. Clearly. That has been shown by the record that he has produced so far and just his overall demeanor in games. You know, it's kind of talked about. He did an interview with RG3, and it was really nicely pointed out, and he even responded to it, that he doesn't really get hyped during games. And he said, it's because the game's not over yet, right? I'm not going to go celebrate a touchdown when we haven't won yet. I'll celebrate when we win. I mean, is there a better answer? Because I don't think there is.
Wow.
So, I mean, absolutely phenomenal kid. His character, his integrity, his just overall personality is as good as you could possibly ask for from everything that I have seen. So really, really looking forward to next year and what it's going to bring. It's going to come with a lot of hype and expectations, but I think he can handle it. I really do. Ready to move on to defense?
Let's move on, my man. Let's move on.
All right, get us started with old Pup.
I will. But for the record, great points on DJ. And it's almost like Tebow-esque. You look at, okay, how could a kid be so gifted, so talented? How can he handle himself in this kind of a stage where with a lot of athletes, you see it going straight to the old brain, straight to the ego. And right. He has continued to stay level-headed. So to your point, let's hope that continues.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, folks, starting off on defense, Grayson Howard, you know him as Pup with the big bite. Yes, 6'4", 238 pounds, by way of Andrew Jackson High School out of Jacksonville, Florida. Came as a 4-star, and he also by way of South Carolina. Okay, yes, so was in old Shane Beamer's system for a couple of years there. 2024 stats: 37 total tackles, 17 solo tackles, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble, 2 fumble recoveries. Now, I will put an asterisk over those stats. 7.5 games, folks.
Yep, that's it.
Didn't finish that 7th game. Got hurt after during the UGA game and went down. So big things from Pup coming back this fall. As I mentioned, transfer from South Carolina. The 2024 stats at UF, all those stats I just mentioned, were higher than his full season in South Carolina in 2023. Okay. In addition to that, he was South Carolina's best tackler, grading out 88.1 according to Pro Football Focus. That was his tackling percentage at South Carolina. Wow. Couldn't find it at Florida. Couldn't find the number. Not going to surmise. But really, really good, because obviously we know our issues with tackling over the years.
Yes, indeed, for sure. And he made it known he was a good tackler last season. Him and Jaden Robinson came to play on the tackling front.
Right? There you go. Overall, graded out PFF 69.7 for the 2024 season, but specifically in run defense, 84.2, the top 23 in FBS. And for the first game of the season, obviously we know it didn't go well. The nightmares are still there, but he earned an overall 83.1 grade in the Miami game. One of the only high points of that game. So that was what it was. Continuing with the On3 numbers, On3 had an interesting comparison. B, I'm not sure if you're going to remember this name, Reggie Ragland out of Alabama.
Oh, I very much remember that name.
Okay, I thought you would. 2nd round pick with the Bills in 2016. On3 did a player comparison, and that's where they said Pup compared to big, high effort, heavy inside, smart linebacker whose best is a high volume tackling run defender who knows how to sniff out a play. Yes, please.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the other thing. The probably the most unique thing that I've seen about Pup is his ability to identify the rushing lanes, rapidly fill those lanes, filling gaps. That it makes him absolutely so valuable to our run defense and what we're able to do. Shane Beamer went so far as quoted him being a future cornerstone at South Carolina for that front. But guess what? He's going to be that for us in 2025 and on. So big things for Pup. Again, didn't get to finish last season because of the injury, but he's coming back healthy. He's coming back stronger. He's coming back with a lot to prove because he believes in Ron's system. He likes the position that he plays in the system. So he's going to be you mentioned this term earlier, anchor. That is Jake Slaughter. Expect Pup to be one of those anchors on this defensive front coming into this fall, even though he didn't even get through a full season last year in his first year with the Gators. But big things out of Pup. Physical, smart, fast. He's going to be very good for us this fall.
Good deal. Good deal. I like it. Yeah, I'm not seeing his I was looking up to see if I could find his tackling grade as well. I don't see it. I did find his run defense grade for last year, which was an 84.2, which ranked 23rd in all of FBS.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So that's pretty good. That's pretty good. But I cannot find the tackling grade either. So you're not alone in that one. These are the struggles of trying to find certain specific data points that we're after. So, however, I have quite a few to give you on this next guy, which is one Mr. Tyreek Sapp. Now, just a little memorandum here, a little looking back when it comes to Tyreek. I loved Tyreek's profile coming into last season. I was a little perplexed by why he was starting with LJ McCray at the same position when LJ looked to have the potential to do more. We fixed that this year. I'll get into that in a minute. But Tyreek had an all-world season. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Despite the sack number not necessarily being through the roof, though it was at 7, which is nothing to shake a stick at. When we look at it overall, his grade out on PFF is going to blow your mind when I get there. So, having taken this look back and kind of where we were last year with Tyreek, I really thought he was going to play well. I honestly didn't think he was going to play as well as he did. He really exceeded expectations last year. If he can do that again this year, whoa. Because I don't know that he can exceed last year, but even if he can exceed expectations for what this year, which are obviously going to be higher, if he can find a way to exceed those again, this is going to be a special player that we have on this line. So let's get to the stats from last season. 7 sacks, 13 tackles for loss, resulting in a minus 48-yard number for the opposing teams. He also forced 2 fumbles, which tied as the team high, and Pro Football Focus graded him, get ready, as an edge rusher at a 90.4 for the season. For the season. Are you kidding me? Highest among all UF players that qualified on defense with that snap count. Actually, could have been all UF players, period, that qualified with a high enough snap count to register as a full season number. 90.4. He also ranked 8th in the country for FBS edge rushers and the highest at Florida since Jonathan Grenard in 2019, who had a 90.5. Wow. 1.1 higher. And if we remember, old John Grenard could play a little bit. He's playing pretty well in the NFL right now. So that is all being cited from FloridaGators.com as well, by the way. So pretty impressive stuff. Actually surprised me when I went through and looked all this up. I knew he had a good year. I didn't know he had that good a year. This is pretty high level stuff. So very excited to see where we go from this year with Sapp. He made such an impact last season and I was alluding to this earlier, that LJ McCray has actually been moved. He is no longer playing behind Sapp. He is now on the opposite side of the line at the opposite edge because McCray should get more snaps this season, hopefully, right? And maybe even start at some point. And clearly the coaching staff didn't want to put him behind Tyreek. And I don't blame them because I wouldn't want to play behind that guy either, especially if I was a really good edge rusher. I'd be like, wow, I'm good, but this guy's ridiculous, right? So it's pretty impressive stuff. Sapp's comments, furthermore, last year, he was quoted in a couple different articles throughout the season regarding how he took things personally in regards to both players that transferred. ETN. And also in regards to the slow start that Florida had to the season. He was very outspoken. He talked about the fact that there was no reason that they should be playing the way they were playing, that they can and will do better as the season goes along. And you know what? He went out there and proved it. He was absolutely lights out in those last few games. I think he got like 3 or 4 of his sacks that he ended up with his season total with in like the last 3 or 4 games of the season. He was remarkable. He was absolutely killing it out there, getting rush in one-on-one matchups, beating his man consistently, getting pressure when we only rushed 4 time and time again. It was impressive to watch. It was really, really cool. Again, I didn't realize he graded out this highly. I mean, 90.4 is off the charts. That you just don't see grades much higher than that, right? So it's really, really exceptional stuff. And I have zero reason to suspect anything to change going forward in the next season, because if you look at Sapp and his motor, that guy he doesn't stop. Like, he is a nonstop energy machine. He's exactly the kind of player that you want on your defensive line, especially at the edge position. And man, I am stoked to have him back for another season. Let's go get it.
And get it they will. Speaking of returning to join that combo up front, you got Caleb Banks, which is the player I'm going to spotlight next. 6'5.5", 330 pounds, a little guy. Redshirt senior.
Yeah, real small.
Yeah.
Real small.
Yeah, redshirt senior by way of Louisville. Let me get the roll right. No Louisville, Louisville, in 2022. Also by way of Southfield A&T, just outside of Detroit, Michigan. 2024 stats: 12 games started, 12 games played in, made 10 starts, recorded 21 tackles, 10 solo tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 1 forced fumble, 2 pass deflections, and 4.5 sacks. Overall, Pro Football Focus grade out in 2024 was a 73.0. There you go.
That's actually shocking it was that low.
And that's the thing. There's a couple. So the thing about Caleb that I'll bring up, and I tell you what, B, that's a great segue. Thank you for catching on. Is when you look at the games that Caleb was involved in this past year, I quite frankly, when I saw the 73, I said the same thing. I'm like, oh, okay. I thought it'd be a little bit higher. In the games that he did very well, he was 78, 79, 81. In the games that he was not as effective in, it was a 69, it was a 68, it was a 64. Yeah. So the average out there kind of, tells the tale there. However, I will say this. Here are a couple notable mentions. Caleb had the most quarterback pressures of any Power 4 interior defender.
Yeah. Interesting. And not surprising. Honestly, 4.5 sacks as an interior defensive lineman is ridiculous. Like, that's like Ndamukong Suh numbers. That's not normal.
No, it's not. Not at all. You expect a sack and a half too, sure. But based off his positioning and what he's able to do and where he's able to spin to, because again, very powerful legs, hips, thighs, he found himself wreaking a good bit of havoc this past year. His highest PFF grade out came versus LSU. So get this: 76.2 on a career high 64 snaps. So oddly enough, you're thinking he's going to be tired. His best grade out came in the game that he played the most amount of snaps. And
Wow.
in that game alone,
What an interesting call out. That's really cool.
right? 3 tackles, five a 5 yard sack, so one sack, a forced fumble, and a
Yep.
pass deflection in that game. Phenomenal game, and that's what earned him D lineman of the week in week 13. So that was great.
Yeah, as it should have.
A great decision by him to return for a senior season, forego the NFL draft. I think that was a great call. Could he have gone? Sure, he would have gone really, really low, but having him come back and be that another A-word anchor on that D line, that's going to be great. Because when you look at him alongside Lyons, Shivers, Barreau, and then you've got Sapp, Gums, McCray rounding out the edges, this is going to be a rather formidable D line that hopefully should wreak a lot of havoc. And as we talk about in SEC football, controlling the trenches, winning in the trenches. My hope, I'll tell you what, my expectation is that with all the scar tissue they have, with all the experience, with all the glue that's been there over the years, they're very familiar with each other, with how they move, with the technique, with the scheme. This D-line should control the trenches this fall and make it easier to pressure, wreak havoc on the corresponding offensive lines, and do some amazing things to set the tone this fall.
Yes, you may have just had the point of the pod right there, and that is in regards to the fact that we have the potential, and we talk a lot about all the parts of football that are sexy, right? The parts that everybody really wants, the flash and dash, right? Whether it's the quarterback or the receivers, or the running backs. At the end of the day,
I think you mean
especially
fun
in
and
SEC
gun,
football,
but
fun and gun, exactly. At the end of the day, especially in SEC football, these games are won and lost at the line of scrimmage. And we have just made a cacophony of points, and it's a vocab word for the day,
Oh,
of
good word.
why,
That's a 2-pointer.
as to why we are capable, more than capable, of being really good, potentially elite on both sides of the line of scrimmage. That goes a long way. Don't underestimate this team's capabilities if we are able to do that. This team will exceed expectations, or at least exceed my expectations, if we are really excellent, bordering on elite on both lines of scrimmage. It will be extremely hard to beat us, period. It just is. That's where football is really ultimately won and lost still to this day, especially in a conference like the SEC. So be very interested to see what happens there. But love that point you made in regards to the returning production from last season. I agree with you. We may not be quite as deep at D-line as we were last season, but I think overall talent level and experience certainly has to be significantly higher, which I'll take that trade. So moving along, let's talk a little secondary and more specifically a little safety. And this is not a little safety. He is a decent-sized fellow, Mr. Bryce Thornton. So 2024 stats, let's get into it right from the start here. Played in only 10 games. He was hurt at the beginning of the season. He had 41 total tackles in 10 games. So averaging over 4 tackles a game from the safety position. Not bad. He also had 19 solo of those 41, 1.5 tackles for loss, which is fine for a safety. Again, you're coming from a long way away to get a tackle for loss, so I'll take 1.5 for -7 yards. He had 3 passes broken up, a forced fumble, and 3 INTs. Pretty impressive stuff. That all from collegefootballstats.com, by the way, or I should say CFBstats.com. He also won the Lot Impact Trophy Player of the Week in Week 13 when he recorded 14 tackles and 2 interceptions in the win against Ole Miss. I had to do a double take on that tackle number. 14 from a safety? Are you kidding me? He was out of his mind. He was absolutely out of his mind. And this is something we saw from Bryce, right? So we saw flashes from him his freshman season, but we also saw a lot of misses, right? Some missed assignments, some missed coverages, right? Things of that nature. We really saw that clean up, especially as the season went along last year. And then on top of it, obviously, he definitely has the ability to tackle. He does not struggle with that at all. He has really improved over his 2 years. in the safety position. And I would say looks to be the solidified starter going into next year, especially with the transfer of Gregory Smith. I don't think there's much doubt that he and Castell are going to be your starters. Not sure what's going on with Asa still, but I don't expect him to be a starter even if he does come back to us. And this puts us in a much better position than we were last season, especially after Asa went down early against Miami, right? We were dealing with DJ Douglas back there. We were dealing with all kinds of, frankly, issues at the safety position. You know, Turquez did do pretty well once he started to get more run, but at the start of the year, between Castell's coverage lapses and the lack of ability of DJ Douglas to cover or tackle, for that matter, we really did not see strong safety production. We were very weak at the position. I think we are going to be leaps and bounds better across the board, assuming Castell continues the play that we saw at the end of the year, not the beginning of the year. I think overall our expectation for the safety position, especially in Bryce, who is, I'm mentioning a lot of their players here, but this is about Thornton and his continued development. I think he could be an all SEC safety next season. I absolutely believe he makes that cut. I think he could be that good with what he's put on film, especially at the end of last year. So I'm going to call for him to have a breakout year at safety. He is going to be part of the reason we spotlighted him is because of this. And I really think he could be a shining star next year in the secondary, amongst us, especially obviously at the safety position. So we'll throw a little bold prediction out there. I say all SEC. Not sure I'm going to say team one, but certainly team one or team two. I think he makes either team one or team two all SEC as a safety next year. So there you go.
Wow.
I'm putting my dollars on the line. Don't go bet on it, but I think he's got a legit chance at it. I really do.
Bold move there, Cotton.
Hey, see how it works out for him.
Right. I like it. Yeah, Bryce, especially that Ole Miss game. Thanks to Jackson Dart being a bonehead,
Hey,
but outside of that,
we'll take picks any way we get them. We don't care if the quarterback just throws up lame ducks. We don't care.
Bryce was in the right place at the right time, so that has
That's
to do with
right,
positioning
and had the awareness to
and
make sure to see the ball,
awareness.
which matters.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. All right. Let's round out this player spotlight. Last one we're going to feature Devin Moore, 6'2" 3/4, 197 to 98 pounds, true senior out of Naples, Florida, came in as a 4-star. Devin, a lot of promise in his career at UF, laden with injury. We'll talk about it. 2024 stats, 17 total tackles, 8 solo tackles, 2 interceptions returned for a total of 84 yards. So it's not just the INT, it's flipping the field. Phenomenal. Yeah, that was only across 7 games, however, as he left this season with a shoulder injury.
Yes, the ever present injury bug with Mr. Moore.
Yes. So hopefully, when you look at what Cormani's transformation took place this past 4 or 5 months after he's come off the field, hopefully Devin and Cormani have been training together, because when you look at size and build, they're almost right there neck and neck with each other. So hopefully he's put on a little bit of size and getting healthier. And that's the other thing too. When you look at what Devin's opportunity was last year, we had such a depleted cornerback room, especially with Jason Marshall going down with injury. And so obviously that didn't help things there. However, when you look at the overall tone of what Devin did last year, some great things. So again, the 52-yard INT at Kentucky. Obviously, we look at what's happened in the coaching realm. Will Harris out, Deron Moore in, or Deron Wilson, my apologies, he's in. And he's already made a comment to Moore his first week on the job. Hey, we got to get you into the end zone, okay? Last year you got pushed out of the 1. You need to get in the end zone this year after a pick. So that's been stated. 2024 overall Pro Football Focus grade out for Mr. Moore, 64.2. So again, the main thing with Devin is consistency, right?
I'm shocked by that, man. And there must be something about what was going on in the early part of the season with some of those schemes and stuff, because his man coverage is, I mean, it's second to none. Frankly, it was better than Jason Marshall's, and Marshall's was excellent. But I'm shocked by that number. I really am.
Yeah. And as was I. And here's the thing: when you look at Devin, according to On3, according to the scouting report, right? Versatile boundary corner, length, recovery, athleticism, and speed to make life tough on receivers. Yeah, we know that. Well said. Concerns: flat-footed, lacks first step, and injury prone.
Huh.
Huh.
Interesting.
I can't say I can. Like, I'm going to disagree with any of those points, right?
No.
But I will say this about Devin, especially after the UGA game and the shoulder. He could have just said, "Okay, whatever, I'm done. Another season thwarted in the books because of injury." Instead, Napier challenged him. Right? Coach Harris challenged him, became a vocal leader, started mentoring younger players, offering insights from the sideline, more feedback, more input. Here's what Big Papa Ron mentioned. He's very talented, more than he knows. His length, his speed, and now coupled with experience, it's all there. He's got a lot of potential, and we need guys like him to take that next step if we want to be, what's the word be? Elite.
Elite. That's the word. And it's interesting about his injuries, just to talk just for a moment about this.
Yeah.
All of his injuries have kind of been like nickel dimers, right? Like none of them have been, there's never been anything with him that's been super serious, knock on wood, of course. But everything has always been just, kind of things that were either nagging or that, he just couldn't quite play through. But it's never been anything that's been crazy serious. So I'm wondering, again, a lot of faith in Tyler Miles here, but I believe it's well founded. I'm wondering, with a better strength and conditioning program, especially now being in his second full year of it, right? Do we finally see some of those kind of nickel dimer type injuries, right? Those just little stinger type injuries, right? That just kind of keep you out a game here and a game there, or a couple games here and a couple games there. Do we see those finally go away for him? Man, I really hope we do, because I think he's got the ability to be next level. I really do. I think he could be a top 10 draft pick if he has a season like what I think he's capable of this year.
And that's a great point. Can the strength and conditioning change the game, literally and figuratively, for a player like Devin, who has all the talent in the world? I mean, came in as a 4-star,
Yep.
Came in as was considered out of Naples High School a lockdown corner to make life terrible for opposing SEC receivers. I mean, if someone described me that way, I would want that engraved somewhere. Especially when you look at the loss of Jason Marshall, right?
Yep.
He needs to be that formidable leader in the cornerback room. And guess what? This is going to be his, as Jason mentioned last year. This
contract
is Devin's
year.
contract year.
That's
Bingo.
right. That's right. Bingo. And he has more potential than Marshall did to really up his stock. Marshall got hampered by that injury, unfortunately, and that was really sad, because I think he could have gone a lot higher if it weren't for that in the draft. But
absolutely.
But Devin's got the potential to really raise his draft stock, because I feel like people who don't follow Florida closely really don't know how good this kid is, and he is really, really good. So, I think again, if we can keep that injury bug away, we've got some really high potential for this next season. So
we do.
Good stuff. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, that was the interesting thing too about getting caught flat-footed, because outside of that, a teammate was quoted as saying he would be my lead in a 4x100 relay.
No, right? That was Tyler. That was Tyler Miles.
Right. Okay. So watch this. I looked this up. In high school, he ran track. And as a junior in high school, he was breaching at 11 second 100 meters, getting it down to about 10:9 and some change.
That's pretty quick.
It's quick, right? And in addition to that, might not have the quickest first step, right? But in addition to that, he played both ways in high school. So the athleticism is there, the speed is there, the size is there, right? Because he's got a couple inches on Marshall. So that helps him with the coverage game. So again, all the best out of Devin this year. But again, he is another piece that is going to be, that A word, an anchor for this team this fall.
Yeah, we just need him to stay healthy, of course.
Yep.
That's the biggest thing with him, and I really hope he can this year. And I have the like inkling that he could. I can't with all the injuries he had. I'm certainly not going to go out on a limb and say I think he does, but
Yeah.
I think it's possible. Like I said, just because of the nature of all his injuries. So we'll see what happens. All right.
Right.
With that, let's move it on to a little basketball offseason update. So this was
Heyo.
unplanned. We did not really go into this early, but we wanted to give you some updates on what's going on. So I'm going to handle the transfers in, and Randy will do the returners that are coming back for next season. And we can obviously give our thoughts on each. But um, transfers of note, there have been a couple others, but the main ones are going to be guard AJ Brown, guard Xavier Lee, and one that you may have heard of just recently here, guard Boogie Fland. Very impressive gets out of the portal. Portal God Todd added again. These are some big names to bring down, especially Boogie. He was expected to want very high NIL dollar value. I don't think we gave him what he was originally kind of floating around with, but it's not about the NIL. It's about the desire to come and play at a now becoming, again, championship pedigreed type school, right? And that's what we're looking at here. And also a huge get, maybe equally as important as Xavier Lee, right? We lost our whole backcourt from last year. All three of our phenomenal guards are gone, right? Guards slash forward, whatever. So to get Xavier and Boogie is ridiculous. I mean, you're replacing greatness with excellence. Like, I mean, I don't it's pretty good stuff that we're bringing in here. Both these guys averaged north of 15 points per game last season on their respective teams, being that of Arkansas for Boogie and Princeton for Xavier Lee. And then AJ Brown comes in from, I believe, Ohio, correct? Ohio University. Um, and I don't have his numbers in front of me because again, we kind of pulled this through the
Yeah.
last moment. But also a very strong guard, though it's possible he does not actually get the start, considering some of the other guys we have on the roster, especially one Mr. Ingram, legacy player, though from football to basketball. Kind of interesting that we have that going on. Cornelius's son. And so CJ Ingram will be coming in, and I really think he could potentially get the start at the wing position. But we'll see what happens. I don't know. Obviously, Camp will decide that, but it's really great to have all this talent again being brought in from the portal God Todd. Love it, Mr. Golden. You get it. You understand what it is to make the moves that you need to make in the offseason. Not to say he's not still recruiting, because he is. Obviously, we just mentioned a promising recruit in CJ Ingram coming in, right? But we really have the opportunity here to and we have other good recruits too. I shouldn't just act like he's the only one. But the point is, we have the opportunity here to really reload and frankly make another title run. And part of that is from the transfers, but also part of it is from the returners. So I will leave that to you to discuss. But obviously, if you have any thoughts on the transfers, please feel free.
Portal God Todd. That's all I'm gonna say. Just
That's it, baby.
there's not a whole lot to say other than Xavier Lee, great fit, twitchy player, smart, not just the school he went to, but just smart overall. AJ Brown, brotherly love. Okay, awesome. Boogie Fland. It's funny you say leaving Arkansas to come to a championship quality caliber built team when you
Yep.
look at the coach that he's leaving. And for those of you who don't know, part of the reason why Cal went to Arkansas is because of a couple of big backers, right? The Sam Walton family,
Yep.
Tyson Chicken. I mean, Sam Walton and company, Tyson Chicken, and John Calipari. I'm not sure how you leave that as easy as you do. Yeah, the NIL didn't have everything to do with it, but that was a hefty 2.1 million, 2.2 million, whatever it ended up being. Um, so let's hope. Can lightning strike twice, and can they gel the same way that Will and Martin and Will was able to gel last year? Can it happen? Who knows? We hope.
Indeed.
We hope. All right. Returning, Alex Condon, Ruben Chinyelu. So
Yes,
I'm gonna start with
indeed.
I'm gonna start with Ruben first. Ruben reminds me of another player back in the day, and I know you probably know where I'm going with this. Similar skin tone, This other player, however, when he played at Florida, a little bit more robotic-like, right? So it was a little bit difficult because he lacked touch. Ruben doesn't have the mass that he has, but has the span, has some of those innate abilities. Yes, I'm referring to Patrick Young. And the interesting thing is, Ruben listed at 6'10", 255, 258. Okay. I think that's a little bit high, but that's what he's listed at. Patrick Young listed at 6'10", 6'10 and a half, 260, because Patrick was, in my opinion, a little bit more built than Ruben is. Either way, however it averages out to be, very similar player profile. I felt like Ruben has less mass, Patrick has more mass, but I do think Ruben has a better ability to run the floor. Ruben has better touch, better hands, and you can tell by the way he finessed his way around the basket. Now, I would argue his shooting percent, his field goal percentage, should be about 8 to 10 more points higher because he missed a lot of 3-footers, 4-footers with finessing the ball instead of going up and just yanking it on the rim. I digress. But either way, a great opportunity for him to come back and continue to develop the skill set, develop the jump hook, develop the touch, develop the power position, develop keeping the ball above his waist, develop a drop step and a pivot and a turn and a hammer. So great with Ruben. He played a lot of vital and valuable minutes for us last year. Great to see him back. Alex Condon, so happy to see him back.
Yes.
Bottom line is at 6'11", I needed him to put on 10 to 15 more pounds of muscle. And hopefully we saw a big shift in confidence from 2023 to 2024. I expect a big jump in confidence from 24 to 25 going into 26. If his confidence jumps any more, we're going to see him consistently deliver 18 and 10 night in, night out. So happy for Alex to be back, playing with his roommate, Thomas Hout. Congratulations to Tommy, now on the starting 5. But Alex and Ruben coming back, I'm not going to say it's Twin Tower-esque, but they have the ability to be that the SEC, be formidable, be glue, a lot of scar tissue there, a lot of high expectations because of what happened last season, but so happy to have those guys back and contribute and mature and refine some of those skills that we saw them show glimmers of. But again, to be a year older, to be better, to be more seasoned, so happy to have him back.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to recap, we bring back our whole front court with the exception of Sam Alexis, who transferred, but he didn't get a lot of playing time, so it's not any colossal loss there in terms of what we had from a production standpoint. I think Sam's talented, and I wish him well, but we bring back Ruben, we bring back Alex, we bring back Thomas. So our whole front court comes back from last season. And then, because again, we lost all our guards, we bring in 3 new excellent guards along with some good freshmen / redshirt freshman recruits that are already on the roster. So why are we not going to repeat? Okay, you get back to me on that. I'm not calling for it. I'm not that bold. It's very, very difficult to repeat. Obviously, only 2 teams this century have done it, us being one, and of course, UConn the other. But ultimately, we are in a phenomenal position with these offseason moves that have been made, whether it's the returning players, whether it's the transfers. I mean, this team's going to be good again next year. I mean, I think when Condon came back, we jumped like 5 points in the expected preseason rankings. So it's a huge, huge deal that we got him back. I really think we're going to be very, very tough again next year. It's going to be a tough out when you play Florida, period. And hopefully we can say the same for football. So that will be determined, and we will discuss that a little further on our next pod, which will be on, I have 6:21 here, but that's too late. So it's actually going to be earlier than that. It's going to be 6:10. So it will be June 10th will be the next pod. And we will be reviewing if Billy's seat is still hot. So we talked about this before last season, but we want to go back into this with the way last season progressed and the way things went. And ultimately, we want to say, is his seat still hot? And if so, how hot? And kind of evaluate that. So that will be the pod that we will have in 2 weeks, actually in 13 days, because we were a day late today, as previously mentioned. But it will be Tuesday the 11th, and Tuesday the 10th, and we shouldn't have any reason why that one will not occur. I won't be on any RV trips, so there you go. But to that end, this has been really good to go through, kind of talk about some player spotlights for next season. Really enjoyed it, and then of course a little review of the basketball team here. Any closing thoughts before we sign off?
My closing thoughts are I really love doing player spotlight. It gets us a little bit more ingrained in the guys,
Yeah.
Kind of some of the backgrounds, some of the off the field type things that just make you feel good and that have continued to reinforce the idea in my mind and reinforce and back up that this is the best team on paper we have seen at the University of Florida in a number of years. A
Yep.
number of years. So to your points, this is all possible. It's all possible.
It is. It is all possible. We'll see if it happens, but it's all possible. So well said. Well said.
Definitely. And to that end, wherever you are, whenever you may be listening, thank you for taking the time, and we will see you around Gator Nation.